Inscryption was recommended to me by a friend. He actually insisted that I play it about a month ago, but one look at its gameplay was enough to deter me, mainly because it's a card game and I am generally not a card game kind of guy. But even that is not quite true. I remember playing The Witcher 3 and absolutely loving Gwent, but the reason for that was that it was fairly easy to get good at. It had some complexity but not too much of it, so it usually did not frustrate me. When it comes to games where cards are the main gameplay feature, things often increase in complexity fast and lead to frustration for me. This friend of mine kept insisting that it's not just a card game and there's more to it, so I broke my rule and actually watched a few minutes of its gameplay. Turns out, there's really more to it. Now I was curious. But before I tell you everything about it, let's first address the Ultrawide. Inscryption supports it natively regardless if 21:9 or 32:9. Now, back onto the game. We find ourselves locked in a dark cabin with someone who is forcing us to play a game of cards against him. The visuals here immediately gave me the vibes of a horror game, although it really wasn't one per se. The environments are interesting but creepy at the same time. While nothing is voice acted, the characters have these obscure sounds that play as they talk, which could be described as their voices. Our captor is obviously some sort of supernatural entity because of how his eyes glow and sometimes spin, but also because of the game of cards, which is alive. Some of the cards actually talk. They shake in fear when you are picking which ones to sacrifice in order to be able to play more powerful ones. It's all very magical and I definitely love that. Once we've finished the first fight, the playing field changes into a map on which we have a few limited options, leading to various random events. These events are also how we improve our cards, find new ones, or, if we are very unlucky, lose some. It is also one of the reasons why I decided to give this game a chance. It offers more than just the card games. At one point, as a matter of fact, our captor will also allow us to get up and look around the cabin itself. This is where we can find puzzles which not only help us strengthen our deck, but are also a different way of telling the game's story as it progresses. Last but not least, our failures are more than just learning experiences. Each time we die, we get to make a special card out of the attributes of some of the cards we have in our deck. This means that each death is actually making us stronger. For someone like me, this was a very important gameplay aspect, since the fear of losing a bunch of times and getting frustrated is very real. If a game like this presents me with an obstacle which appears to simply not be fun anymore, I would rather move on to another one than spend hours to pass one single encounter. Inscryption almost guarantees that this cannot happen with its many power-up opportunities. It's also very good at hooking the player early on. I've managed to play through it in 12 hours and I did it within a single day. This is very unusual for me and simultaneously a clear testament to how well the gameplay loop was designed. However, the game has issues and I will now address them. First and foremost, the story. Obviously I can't tell you too much about it because that would spoil it, but let's just say that there's a lot more to it than just being a captive of a seemingly demonic creature and trying to escape. And within that complexity of the story lies its biggest weakness. A complex story is a very risky move and should only be undertaken by the best of storytellers. Inscryption is actually divided in 3 chapters, and the one where we play cards in the cabin is only chapter 1. The problem with this is that chapter 2 changes the game entirely. We now have a semi-open 2D world and new rules for the card game. This chapter is also the weakest in the game by far. The truth is that I did not know of it. Otherwise, I would have never even started the game. The visuals become absolutely awful. The gameplay felt mostly boring, and the only thing that kept me going was that my friend convinced me that the 3rd chapter is again very similar to the first one. This extreme shift in the game's looks really left a bad impression on me. Upon reaching the 3rd chapter, I found out that while the visuals had returned to the levels of the first one, the gameplay rules had changed somewhat yet again. We would now travel from screen to screen and the visuals were all quite boring when compared to chapter 1 again, simply due to the different theme. It was still a huge improvement in every way when compared to the awful 2nd section, but not a return to glory by far. I also found that the 2nd and 3rd chapters were substantially more difficult than the first one. So much so that I was forced to resort to a known gameplay exploit which helps you empower a single card to insane levels. Even with that, I would sometimes still lose simply because it's a card game and will rely heavily on your luck. In the words of one of the game's bosses, perfect play can't beat RNG. In essence, I started playing the game and had a blast for the first 4 hours or so while playing Chapter 1. The gameplay loop was fun and addictive. The story seemed really interesting because most of it had not been revealed yet, and the game had great visuals. Then Chapter 2 came and almost all of it fell apart. The third one was okay, but by that point the story was almost entirely revealed to us and ended up being uninteresting and convoluted. This means that one of the main motivations for the player to continue and see the game to its end had been damaged beyond repair at this point. In addition to that, the magical creatures were replaced with bland machine ones, and the difficulty of the encounters increased a lot as well. The game tried to solve this by placing checkpoints, but as a result to that, I found myself exactly in one of those situations where I would have to replay the same battle numerous times until my luck would improve and I would be able to beat my opponents. And I want to emphasize this yet again, luck is very important in this game. You draw cards. If you don't draw the right cards in the right order, you're still screwed sometimes, even if you have generally really good cards available to you in your deck. Inscryption is, without a doubt, a good game, but had it been more consistent with its presentation and story, it would have easily been an amazing one. It's definitely above average and will even entertain people such as myself who would normally steer clear of card-based games. It currently sells for €20 on both GOG.com and Steam. I played the GOG version since it's DRM free and I oppose all forms of DRM. Considering the length and overall quality, I'd say that $20 is an excellent price for what we have here. With all of its flaws, I still view this game as a hidden gem. If you've watched the review this far, I'm going to assume that you are somewhat interested in it. If so, you could try the demo first. That one's free. But be aware that the demo is probably gonna put you in Chapter 1, which is by far the best one. It's gonna hook you, and then the inevitable disappointment will follow once you reach Chapter 2 in the full game and realize that things have changed a lot. Regardless, I do think that you should give the game a try. It is a good game, just not what it could have been, as I said before. Thank you for watching Game Filter. I hope the video was informative and entertaining, and would be very happy to see you on the next one. Until then, this is Nino signing off. Have a great day.